Jungkook, Wine, are you still not ready? He shouted while he was waiting for Wine on the dining table with the breakfast ready. Wine was getting ready for college, but when she heard his shout, she looked at the clock and her eyes widened. Wine shouted, "What? It's already 7:45." Wine, "I don't even have time for breakfast," she said and quickly combed her hair. Packing up her backpack, she ran to the dining table. She kissed Jungkook on the cheek and said, "Sorry, I don't have time for breakfast," she said and started running towards the door. Jungkook held her wrist and pulled her towards himself. Wine. "Jungkook, it's not the time," she said annoyingly, trying to get rid of his grip. He held her tighter and gave her a finger flick on her forehead. "Jungkook, your laces are open, you clumsy cat." Wine looked down and she gasped. Then she rubbed her forehead and said, "You could say that without doing this." Jungkook chuckled and bent down to tie her laces. She immediately moved her feet back and said, "What are you doing? I will do it," she whispered lowly. Jungkook smiled and took a step closer and started tying her laces. As soon as he was done, she started running again, but he held her wrist one more time. Wine. "What now?" He was going to flick her forehead again, but she moved back. She smiled nervously. "What did I forget now?" Jungkook took the phone from the dining table and offered it to her. "Jungkook, your phone," he said sarcastically. Wine chuckled. "Anything else, or should I already run?" Jungkook picked her up from her waist and made her sit on the chair. Wine. "What are you doing? I'm already late." Jungkook put his hands on her shoulders and said, "I didn't want to look at it, but because it ringed in front of me, I saw the message. Your first class is cancelled." Wine's eyes widened for a second. "Really?" She unlocked her phone and took a look at it. Wine sighed. "It really is cancelled." Then she looked at him and said, "Why didn't you tell me that before?" Jungkook, "Why do you think I called for you so late? I usually call you for breakfast at 7. Wine sighed again. "That's what I was thinking. Thank God. Otherwise, that big-eyed granny wasn't going to spare me today." Jungkook laughed and sat on his chair. "Let's eat first." Wine. "What do you mean first? What are we going to do afterwards?" Jungkook licked his lips as he looked at her. Wine. "What are you thinking, Jungkook? Why are you licking your own lips?" He leaned forward and whispered, "Because the food today is going to be really tasty." Wine pinched his thigh, making him groan. Wine. "I'm not taking another day off at all. I can't afford it at this point." Jungkook. "Who says you have to? We have a whole class. I will be done before that." They both looked at each other and chuckled. Wine and Jungkook have an age difference of 8 years. They both were engaged to each other by their parents as soon as they were born. Their parents were best friends, so they didn't hesitate to engage their children with each other, even when the age difference was much. Then they arranged their marriage when Jungkook was 27 and Wine was 19. It's been 1 year since then. Wine pushed him back from his chest and shook her head. Wine. "You're crazy." Jungkook. "Also, you will have to eventually take a day off, because you know it's our wedding anniversary this week." Wine. "Not at all. We can celebrate in the evening. My exams are coming and I can't take any more days off." Jungkook. "You're not serious, right? It's our anniversary. Fine. No means no. Jungkook sighed dramatically, leaning back in his chair. I can't believe you'd rather study than celebrate our anniversary. What happened to the girl who used to skip classes just to hang out with me? Vine rolled her eyes, picking up her fork. That girl grew up and realized that exams are more important than spending the entire day eating cake with you. Jungkook crossed his arms against his chest and said, So now I'm less important than exams. Vine leaned over the table, smiling teasily. Depends on the exam. If it's calculus, you don't stand a chance. He sighed. I'll help you study afterwards. We are even now. Fine, says the man who hates math. Jungkook, you don't know me, Miss Joan. He smirked, leaning closer to her. Vine's face flushed slightly at the way he said her name. Stop trying to be cute. It's not going to work. Jungkook grinned. You think I'm cute? Vine pretending to think about it and said, Maybe a little. He laughed. Fine. Don't change the topic. She tried to sound angry, but her cheeks were red. He laughed again and stood up. He walked around the table to stand behind her chair and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He whispered in her ear, Come on, Vine. Just one day. We can go somewhere nice, eat your favorite pizza, and then caramel ice cream. And then he kissed the back of her ear and said, Spend some time together. Vine swallowed. She knew she needed to study, but if he blackmails her with her pizza and favorite ice cream, she couldn't say no. Vine took a deep breath and shook her head while saying, Okay. No, I mean, she sighed. You can't use caramel ice cream for a bait. Jungkook stood straight. You were thinking this much because of your caramel ice cream? I thought it was because of what I said at last. About spending time together. Vine. You said something after ice cream too? Jungkook glared at her for a few seconds, with his anger at peak. Then he went to sit on his chair. He started eating his food as he said, Forget it. You can study all you want and eat that favorite ice cream of yours, he said sarcastically. Vine laughed and stood up to sit on his lap. Vine, you look so cute after being teased by me, she said while laughing, and then held his cheeks. Vine, okay, my cute husband, I will do whatever you say. She leaned closer and then whispered to him in the ear, in the same tone as he said earlier. We will spend all the time you want, together. Jungkook blushed and pulled her closer from her waist. Jungkook, you sure? Fine. 100%. She nodded as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Jungkook, that's nice, but what are you trying to do? Getting so close to me? Fine. I have a class off, you know. She winked at him. Jungkook smirked. Don't regret later for turning me on like that, he said and closed his lips with hers in a fierce and passionate kiss. She deepened the kiss by coming closer to him. He stood up by holding her from her waist and made her sit on the table without breaking the kiss. After a few minutes, Vine pulled back and said, We have to look out for the time too, just in case. She looked at her watch and her first class was already about to be over. Vine shouted in panic, What the hell? Jungkook, what? She showed him the watch and he laughed. Fine. Why are you laughing? She said, trying to move him so that she can run. Jungkook flicked her forehead, making her shout. Jungkook, calm down, he said and picked her up on his back, giving her a piggyback ride. Jungkook, hold tight, we're going to run, he said and immediately started running while she held him close. Both of them chuckled.